What is up, Luca Nation? I'm really excited for today's episode for a few reasons. One of the reasons is Mr. Dan Fleyshman is someone who I've watched his content from afar. I've watched his YouTube and his Instagram stuff and how he came up in the business. So from that personal reason, I'm excited. But more so, we became friends at the show. You know, the Coffee Breakers and us, they're on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast. So we've interacted on Instagram and stuff before, but we never got a chance to chop it up and meet. And at the show at the National, I got to see kind of the guys behind the brand. And they were one of the most welcoming, one of the kindest. They gave you time and attention when you went over there. So I got to give a shout out to the whole Coffee Breakers team. And today, guys, we have Mr. Dan Fleyshman and Dan Lenhart on the podcast. And it's the 10 for 10. You guys know what we're doing, the 10 guests in 10 days to kind of recap the National. So I'm really excited to have you guys on. Welcome to the show, Fleyshman, Lenhart. Thank you guys for taking the time to come on today.
Thanks for having us. The National was amazing. It was such a whirlwind.
What was your like impression? What was your takeaway? And I don't know, was this your first National or have you been before?
No, I went 2 years ago with Gary Vee. That's how I got back into the game. I was supposed to go to see him for a few hours. I happened to be in Chicago, and I changed my flights and stayed the whole week with him, and just walked around with his son as like Uncle Dan, and like went and bought wax around the show for a few days. It was a lot of fun. But this recent one was so much bigger. There was so much action. I mean, you could barely walk the hallways. It was mind-blowing to see how much has evolved in those 2 years, and also seeing some of the interesting characters that have now integrated themselves in, obviously with DJ Ski doing his multiple days at Tops, Steve Aoki with Tops, Ben Baller with Tops, seeing all like what TriStar did bringing in Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. Like, there was so much action everywhere from Panini and PSA and Golden Auctions. Like, they're just so much bigger, and there's so much action. Every night there was a different event.
I love it. And we just talked about that with Cage, like the artist coming into the hobby that moves it forward, right? Because this traditionally has been a hobby of like guys ripping wax, completing sets, and things like that. But seeing guys, like you said, like artists, traditional creatives, traditional artists coming in and adding that touch. I'm curious. I know you're kind of like a part of that crew. Do you think like that's what helped cards go kind of more mainstream and become more culturally relevant, having guys like Steve Aoki, DJ Ski, and the people that you mentioned to join the hobby?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're literally the founders of my company. So I mean, I can't say more bluntly than that. Like, I believe that anytime you can get massive amounts of eyeballs from Logan Paul and Ben Baller and different artists and entertainers and athletes, it's just huge for the entire industry. It actually frustrates me when I see some of the traditional hobbyists getting mad, like, about some of these things that are happening. The more eyeballs that come in, the more the game gets more fun, and you have to adapt to it. There's more interest. You had over 1 million or 2 million. I've seen different stats about 1 to 2 million new hobbyists coming in and buying and collecting cards. You're obviously seeing eBay go through the roof and start doing endorsement deals with guys like Steve Aoki to help expand it. You're seeing such mainstream, like, sports channels adding on them, opening up packs of cards. Like, you want all of that. Whether you've been doing this for 10 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, you want new, fresh blood into the game. It helps the entire market. And yes, of course, the traditionalists, there's different twists and turns in how they feel about it. But overarching, getting millions of people into your hobby is exciting. And so the way that actually all happened, might as well tell you a behind-the-scenes story. So the National, as I mentioned, I was walking around with Gary for those few days. We get back and we start a group chat. And the group chat's just a bunch of like Gary's friends and different business guys and friends. And we're all just talking about the National, what happened, what we bought, what did you get, what'd you buy, what'd you buy. I only bought a couple of LeBrons and a couple of Jordans. And at the time, the LeBrons were $1,050. And so a lot of people have heard that Gary bought 53 LeBrons for $1,050 each. I watched him do the wire during the National. And so I only bought a couple of those. I bought a couple of Jordans. I bought a couple of Lucas. And when I get back, I see like $1,000 LeBron go to $1,400 and then $1,700. And so my little business brain gets buzzing. I'm like, wait, this is interesting. The group chat gets so big, we start a second group chat. And we start a Pokemon group chat. And then Gary says, why don't you invite some of your friends that may have collected in the past but don't have any cards now? Business friends, cannabis friends, music guys, let's get them all into a Zoom call and just explain what we're doing and why. So that's where Rob G, never had a card before that day. Now he's got tens of millions of dollars in cards. Steve Aoki, Lewis Howes, the podcaster, cannabis executives, real estate executives, business executives are all on that first Zoom call with 36 guys. During that call, it was just Gary explaining his passion. You could feel it, right? You can still feel it, but like he was, it's intoxicating. Everybody wanted to be a part of it. Out of 36 guys, 27 of them start buying, and like a dozen-ish go nuts, right? Those dozen-ish probably have $60 or $70 million in cards now. The day before that Zoom call, they had zero, like actual zero. And so to watch how deep Aoki's got, how deep some of these podcasters have got, obviously how deep Rob G has got buying the most expensive cards in history, like that, having that happen is huge for the entire market. Because if all of a sudden Rob's spending $5 million on a baseball card, that helps the whole market, the amount of press that happens. If Aoki all of a sudden is opening up packs and Logan Paul is opening packs and these things are happening, it all stemmed from one Zoom call. Like just telling people why we like the game. Now, I'm proactively trying to do that at all times, right? Whether it's events, whether it's charity events, whether it's social media content, constantly trying to bring interesting characters in, whether they're going to buy a little bit of cards or lots of cards, who knows, but getting them interested in it usually has an emotional attachment to their past, to their childhood, and then what they take from it and what they do with it, like I said, some people didn't buy anything, some people went nuts.
So Dan, I love the story, and the beginning of it, I'm sitting here going, wow, it's culture and it's cards and it's people coming in and it's great. But I'd be remiss, to our audience if I didn't ask this follow up on it, right? It sounds like a Masters of the Universe type of scenario where you're talking about 30 people in a group who magically and coincidentally, the hobby has gotten hot in the last 18 to 24 months. It coincides with the same time that Gary comes into a group with a bunch of rich folks and says, hey, everybody buy because I love it. Now, there's no manipulation. There's no intention. Everybody loved it. Everybody loved his passion. Everybody said, go ahead and buy these things. Everybody thought LeBron was too cheap at that $1,000. And look, it's at $18,000 now and was like significantly higher than that. I guess my concern is, and maybe you can help me with that and maybe help the audience with that, is Gary comes on pretty often and he says things like, hey, NFTs, it's like internet 2007, 98% of this is going to fail. Only the good stuff is going to survive. And then, he comes on and says, buy VFriends, but then comes on this week and says, hey, VFriends are expensive. Go buy World of Women NFTs, right? He does his thing, right? So do you envision a time where Gary comes into that group and says, hey guys, we got too far out ahead of our skis? Start, not DJ ski, but you know what I mean? We maybe we should pare back. And then that group, which has now 50, 70, 80, $100 million worth of cards, says, all right, we're going to start dumping these onto the market and everybody's left holding a bag. Should we be worried about that?
So let's walk through. Let's unpack all of it.
Yeah, please.
So a couple things. One, Gary's very competitive. So he buys a lot of the cards that even when I want like the Kevin Durant auto, he'll go buy it at the auction at the last second. Like he's in the game. The millions.
Wait, he's bidding against you?
Oh yeah.
You message him and be like, you sniped me, you bastard.
Absolutely.
That's great.
He's in full-fledged battle mode at all times. So a couple things. One, in the group chat, for example, people are buying completely different cards, right? You've seen Gary talk about like a Kevin Durant card being undervalued, LeBron being undervalued, Michael Jordan being undervalued. It's not exactly rocket science. Like he's just saying the couple of the main Hall of Fame stars like that he likes, that's it. He's not out saying go buy this exact card or this exact thing. He's also buying wrestling and stickers and weird garbage pail kids and all sorts of things across the board. It ends up being, who knows, $10 or $20 million worth of stuff. But he doesn't sell. Like I want to buy stuff from him and I can't because he just doesn't sell. He's too rich. What's the point, right? So oftentimes I hear people about him manipulating. The guy's got so many $100 million plus exits and 900 employee companies. Like who cares about a couple $1 million? Like get over yourselves. Like it's not him buying a card for $400, selling for $700. It's never going to do anything for Gary Vee. Let's just be blunt. Next, the group, they argue, they buy different stuff. They buy Star Wars, they buy Pokemon. There's buying football and baseball and vintage. And how dare you, Dan? Why are you buying Kendrick Nunn? That's so stupid. Why are you buying LeBron James? You should buy blah, blah, blah. Like it's constant warfare. It is not like it's just not. It's a constant thing that these guys love the game. They love battling. And there is no version of a dump because these guys are lifelong collectors and most of them are extremely wealthy from their other businesses. This is not like whatever you call it. Anyways, there was no intention or
No, I mean it's great, and it's a great answer. It really is, especially if everybody's just in this for a long term and everybody wants to buy this stuff. I mean, look, people have to sell these things; they get ahead of themselves, right? I mean, there are certain things that you'd be nuts not to take a profit on, but it's not a grand scheme. You were hearing it from a guy in the chat, one of the OGs of that chat. He's saying, "Hey guys, we did not come in create a multi-level marketing scheme with Instagram group chats and decide that we're just going to crap on the entire hobby. It's not the point. And also, you now have brick and mortars that are expanding, right? And a brand that's expanding outside of the West Coast and all over the country where you're expanding and looking to hire. And, that would just kill that, right? I mean, all the hobby momentum that you and Gary and the group and everyone has created would just die. So I'll give you a compliment on this, right? I walked the Nationals my first time at the National. And the thing that surprised me the most was the combination of two things, right? The cultural aspect, the artists who are there, the fact that happy hours are being hosted by the tops artists, Blake Jameson and you have Ben Baller and DJ Ski doing his whole thing where people are literally getting it there and listing it on eBay and selling it for 5x of what they're getting the things for. I mean, it's an amazing, that collision of culture and breaking, right? I was shocked at how many people were set up with tables with a camera opening for someone sitting in Kalamazoo. Right. That person's not at the National, but they don't have to be, because here you are, you get on with you get on with you guys, or you get on with whoever, maybe boom, someone's back there. Dan is going to tell you he's sitting at the store right now, and there's two people breaking right now. So when you combine those two, what I took from it was that's the future of the hobby, and your brand has kind of already, put those two together. You got the culture and the brand. It's really, really cool how you're ahead of the curve on that. What do you think, Dan? You want to show us a little panoramic, quick view for the YouTube folks?
Let's do it.
Lenhart.
So I'm sitting at the stage here. We have the Bear Brick Army behind me. We have some paintings by Adam Moss over here. And then our retail storefront. We have our wax wall over here. Showcases on the wall. Showcases are filled. Obviously, we bought a ton this week at the National. A little sneak peek of it.
That's cool. Go ahead, Andrew.
Behind
I don't know. You're gonna make fun of me for saying this, but to me,
Probably.
when I moved to the West Coast, one of my I was so excited to see what a weed dispensary looks like, and I thought they were so beautifully designed. You'd have the weed plants behind the glass and all that stuff. Come back on camera.
By the way, when I go to the West Coast, Dan, I want to see In-N-Out Burger. I want to see In-N-Out Burger. He wants a weed dispensary.
I waited for your gotcha. So. And what I noticed was how beautifully designed stores on the West Coast were. And that's what I saw with your guys' store. It's so beautifully designed, so much glass. It's a place you want to spend hours. It's not just a place you want to come in, get a card, talk to that old LCS guy and bounce. It's a place people want to spend hours. I'm curious. I want to hear from Lenhart because he was at the booth 24/7. The guy was working 24/7. I'm curious because this is still a national showcase. Don't forget about that. What were people buying? What were people selling? Give people a little bit of a pulse on the market.
Yeah, I think as we know, a lot of people that are investing like to invest, a couple months before a season starts in anticipation, investing into the hype. So, quarterbacks were still, on fire. A lot of people were looking for Herbert. Not a lot of Burrow action, but a lot of Herbert, a lot of Jalen Hurts. There were a couple of Dak Prescott questions. There were some off-the-wall quarterbacks, but I was still surprised that all the GOAT talk was still there. LeBron, Jordan, everyone was really looking to trade up. You guys came up to the table looking to sell your Lucas Silvers. There was still a lot, there were people that would come up, ask if we had Tony Kukoc cards. But, the majority of the people were asking for, the main players, which I was I wasn't really anticipating that. But, we carry a lot of the main guys, Zion, Ja, just the big names in every sport, and that's what was being asked for.
Lenhart, I think we might have been there for the answer to this, but we'll ask it anyway. One of the cool things about having a dealer, spot at the National or any show, being a dealer there, having a table, is you never know what's going to walk up, what somebody's going to put down at that table. And you guys somehow, you're somebody that people are seeking out now. You got a gigantic safe. You got Dan's name behind the brand, right? It's, people got the shirts all over the place. A couple of our listeners were walking around with your shirts on, which is pretty cool. And
the money counting machine, please don't forget that.
Yeah, people were talking about the money counting machine. We didn't matter what table. Hey, you guys gonna make it over to the coffee breakers and count the money machines? I'm like, are they gonna count my money? Because that would be pretty cool. I'll go over there. I don't know how much I have in my pocket, so we'll figure out. But but it's awesome because people are seeking you out with the big cards. So what were some, because I know one guy that I can mention to you if you forgot it, because I know it's a whirlwind tour, but what were some of the cool things, some of the big pieces that came up to you where people, not that you had to buy it, but I mean like that people offered you at the show?
There were a couple big Jordan, LeBron dual autos. When cards hit over $1 million, I don't really have a good sense of how much they're worth. If it's 1 or 2 or 3 or anything in between, it's just a lot. You know, I see a card, I'm like, that's a big card. I don't know how to put a number to it, but that's a big card. So there were a couple of those big dual autos. There was also the one you were there for, which was a 2017 Patrick Mahomes 101 RPA. It was similar to the $4 million one that just sold. Guy came up with his backpack. I was standing doing another deal, and he pulls out a couple cards of his backpack, and I'm like, yeah, I'll take a look. And I turned it over, and I was shocked. I just kind of looked around like, what is going on? Am I really holding this? And then I looked at the next card, and it was a Bowman Chrome Brady Refractor BGS 9.5.
Yeah, that was like the small card. That was like, don't worry about that one. That's my little card. You're like, what?
And I kind of looked around. I was like, can someone else look at this to make sure I'm looking at this right? Is this a Mahomes 101 RPA of National Treasures? So those were obviously some of the highlights. There was a lot of I saw like a Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Trae Young, dual Logo Man 101. That came up raw. There was a Yao Ming LeBron dual patch auto that we bought that came up raw. You know, so there's really interesting rare cards that you don't see. And obviously, you know, we ended up buying like a LeBron Refractor BGS 9, you know, the big comic cards. But it was really interesting to see those low pop unique cards you don't see all the time, as well as the massive Mahomes 101 RPAs.
And that was after the collections. I mean, Daniel was nonstop. The amount of selling that was being offered was at scale. And so for us, it was just a math game. You know, we brought a ton of money with us, literally just to focus on buying. And it's hard because day 1, day 2, you're just like a kid in a candy store, right? Everything comes up and you just want to like make it rain. Like, I'll buy it. And then you start to realize by like Friday, Saturday, like, oh shoot, like I'm going to run out of money. And Sunday's the most important day because Sunday you get the best deals, right? On the last day, people don't want to schlep all their stuff back home. And so they take crazy low offers. And so it was an interesting scenario. There was a couple big collections that Daniel bought and Chad bought, where someone brought us a $220,000 collection, and we're figuring out a way to purchase it for $145,000 cash plus LeBron Refractor and a couple other cards to get to a number around the 170 mark. So remember, as a buyer, we have to be able to buy for anywhere from 60 cents to 80 cents on the dollar, 70 cents kind of being your dollar cost average. Nobody really talks about this bluntly. Like we're open about all this. We call it building in public. We talk about our numbers, we talk about our sales, we talk about our staff, we talk about all of it because I want people to understand behind the scenes of the game. So Daniel's trying to buy 65 cents, 60 cents, 70 cents on average on something that we really, really want. We'll obviously go up to 80 cents plus if we need to because we need to have a spread, right? There's a couple of reasons why. One, if the market dips, we built in a little safety net for us. Two, we're selling at 100 to 120%, depending on the time, the season, what's happening with the market. If it's something we just don't want to sell, we'll go up to 110 or 120, but for the most part, we sell around market value. But the next thing is we pay sales tax. We pay 9.5% sales tax. So we have to build in 10% just for that off the gate because we're in California. It's very expensive to be here, and we have a big overhead. And so we have to account for margins of error, account for state sales tax, and account for just general operations of like, how much does it actually take if I go buy 84 cards and now Daniel and team have to go inventory them, sort them, organize them, list them on eBay or Golden Auctions or at the store in a 333. That's a lot of manpower. It's not just one person. There's multiple people over and over and over. So that card, I can't buy a card that's $20 for 16 and then go expect to make money from it because just the human power behind it. And so that's why I'm trying to buy at scale while we're looking at some of the grail cards and the bigger cards. I love buying cards that are $50 to $500 at scale. I want as many $200, $400, $300 cards as possible because that's really what the masses can afford. That's really what most people are going to buy, sell, and trade with us. Do I want to buy a $15,000 RPA? Yeah, cool. But I'd rather have $15,000 of me getting 50 $300 cards, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. So the follow-up question on it is, that seems to be describing base cards. It seems to be describing, kind of like those Zion prisms and the whole 9 yards, which are liquid but have kind of fallen on hard times.
Yep.
So, we'll get back to the National in a second, but I mean, is that still your design? And that's your design because you can flip them because that's what most people are going to walk into your show and be able to afford, or walk up to your store and be able to afford.
Yes. So what's interesting, like you hear something like the Luka base card having 17,500 PSA 10s, right? That's an insane number. However, if you really think about how many millions and millions and millions of fans does Luka have, and he's going to be one of our few generational players. He's going to be one of those few players that, barring any injury, he's going to go on to break so many records. It's insane. So is 17,000 that many? I don't know. And also what people don't take into account, most dealers, friends, people that I know don't have one of that card. They'll have 4, 10. Some of them have 20, 50, 100, 200, 300 of them because of the price point. And so the 17,500 sounds like a huge number. That's not liquid. There's lots of guys that have, other sports card stores have 20 to 50 of them, times hundreds of stores, hundreds of dealers, hundreds of people, plus all the collectors that just have it in their safe. The number is not as big as people actually think as far as the liquid market, because it's a card that's affordable. People have multiple. And so we do buy those at scale. Zion and Luka are the number 1, number 2 most heavily produced PSA 10 card in history. However, they carried those years on their backs, right? And so ultimately, if they go on to continue to be healthy, that will always be the main card. And if millions and millions of more people get into the sports card space, a lot of them will gravitate to those obvious players.
I'm curious. So that's actually exactly where I wanted to go. So after college, I moved to the Bay Area, and I worked in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and all that stuff. And I got to see some of the conferences and conventions early on in 2013, 2014. I've said the hobby reminds me of what Bitcoin and crypto was like in 2013, 14. Also poker, in the early 2000s, it reminds me of that. I'm curious from your perspective, I'm not going to ask you what inning are we in, but like going after the National, where do you feel that this hobby's headed?
Sure. We are in the beginning stages of the evolution, but I will say we're not in the beginning stages of the market because it's been around for well over 50 years. So this game, especially around 20, 30 years ago, was massive. Most of the guys that I know, we all did this when we were 4 years old, 12 years old, 8 years old, 13 years old. So it's been around 30 years where that was like the big market. And obviously that was also around the junk wax era as well for baseball. But for the new evolution, these last 6 months in particular, is inning 1. Why? Well, in the last 4 months, if you look at the headlines, most of the tech and innovation related companies have all raised 8 figures each. Whatnot, 70 million. Loop, 13 million. Rally Road, I forgot something.
Rally, Starstock,
collectible. 8 figures. Alt raised 32 million.
Yep.
That's all in the last few months. And I can keep going. Golden Auctions gets acquired. Blackstone, one of the biggest VC firms, comes into the table. All these big executives and CEOs and athletes start investing into these rounds of financing for these companies.
I don't want to tell you how many millions we've turned down already in buyout offers. So I'm with you. There's money being thrown all over the place.
And so as more funds are popping up, as more VCs are coming in, as more executives are coming in, all of it happened literally this year. None of those funding rounds were really happening in 2020. There was like a little bit. They were getting their first rounds. They were getting their first amounts of capital. But these companies now are getting 8 figures each, and they're not slowing down. And so we're just now at that turning point of like innovation where you're going to see the Whatnots and Loops and Starstocks of the world. Now, we just did a deal with a company called The Real Real. They have 23 million users that are pretty wealthy. This is like Louis Vuitton. It's like a fancy pants website with 23 million users. Now, we have a whole sports card section on this site that they're pushing for us. I hosted a big podcast with them yesterday. Like they care about the space. And so when you have multi-billion-dollar companies coming in, you've got eBay stroking big checks to Aoki to be out there on the face of it. DJ Ski's on the cover of eBay almost damn near every day on the sports card section. Like, these are mega corporations with mega bankrolls, way bigger than all of us combined, right? And so when they start spending money on marketing, they start seeing the space, and hedge funds and VCs start coming in. We are literally in the midst of the first inning.
Something I was talking to Cage about it. We mentioned this on the show. I mean, we said this all year, really, but last year card prices have gone berserk, right? I mean, we saw card prices go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10x. And I think smart business owners, right? We had Darren Herman on from Bain Capital, and he said they always chasing alpha was kind of what we took away from that. Well, to me, if the card prices are going astronomical, the company that facilitate the card industry have suddenly become incredibly underpriced. So why buy a Jordan Fleer PSA 10 when I could go and invest in the company that the marketplace that's going to be selling? So when you see that, just like I said with the crypto thing, that's what I saw in 2013, 14, when you saw Coinbase and all of these different exchanges and wallets get a ton of VC funding. I definitely agree with that evolution of what you said. We're just in the beginning stages. Was there anything surprised you? Anything that, if you were the CEO of National, that you would change, fix, maybe modernize?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of key things. The Breakers Pavilion should be somewhere else, potentially at a hotel that runs 24/7. It's too loud. So us being a 24/7 breaking company would never, even if they paid us, I wouldn't go into the Breakers Pavilion. It's too loud. It's not functional. It gives a bad customer and user experience on the other side of it. I like the concept of it, but the practicality of volume and distraction, it's too hard to utilize. Next, that main stage there should be back to back to back on the hour, every hour. The programming should be full from Wednesday to Sunday night. Wednesday morning, Sunday night, every single day, there should be programming. They've brought in such big talent. TriStar brought in huge, Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. Woo! Like, you have mega guys back there doing autographs and signings and pictures, and they spend real money on that, flying, private jets and everything to get them out there. That main stage should have Gary Vaynerchuk, Josh Luber from StockX, Ken Golden, boom, every hour on the hour for 5 days straight. There's no reason it doesn't, because they all love it, right? Most of them would do it for free because they're already there anyways.
Yep.
When Alexis Ohanian from Reddit is there, get him up on stage. When Ben Baller's walking through, get him up on stage. Like, you have the access and the love and passion that these guys are paying for themselves to fly out and working with these brands. Get them up on stage and make it a true, proper auditorium style room. Information is huge in this industry. In every industry, information is a big deal. And the fact that so many athletes, business executives, and people that are part of the culture are in the building and willingly coming there, get them up on stage. And it's an easy thing for them to do. It doesn't take any special thing besides a stage, a microphone, and a bunch of chairs. That's it. The rest will figure itself out. And all these guys are already in town anyways. And flow of traffic is important. Right now, it feels like a cluster. You don't know where to go or how to get there or who's where. And so I didn't even get to walk the full show, and I desperately wanted to. Right? I'm there from the night before till the night after. I'm there for a full week, and I still didn't get to walk the show fully because of the way it flows and the way the walkways are. And there's no real map to really figure out where everything is. It makes it tough. And I think a lot of people are obviously grandfathered in with their real estate, with their spaces inside of it. But I think it's important to try to figure out a way to make it so, I know memorabilia is there. I know that the card stores are there. I know that Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, non-sports is over there. Sectioning off would be a big help for a lot of people because we just don't know. And even when we're in it, we don't know where to go or how to get there. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, to me, I think the biggest miss is they also had a lot more space. This is something that they could have expanded. Like, it is hard to get a booth there, really hard. I have so many friends that have card stores or businesses or whatever that want to buy booths, and they literally can't because they're so sold out and so many people are grandfathered in. And so you got to expand it. There's no reason to not expand it. It's not an exclusivity thing. It's not like a cool factor thing when it comes to national. It's not that. This is not like Complex Con or Magic, the clothing convention. This is a sports card convention about commerce and history. Expand it. And there was plenty of room to expand. There's a whole nother ballrooms. There's a second floor there. Figure it out. Take over the NBC Suites across the street. When when Magic the Fashion Show, it's been evolving since the 90s. When it got too big, they added another show called Project and another show called Pool. Those are all the same week. They're just across the street. Magic ended up taking over multiple buildings, multiple convention centers. And as they expanded, guess what? the show went from 40,000 to 60,000 to now over 90,000 people in attendance. The National has, who knows, 50, 60, 70, 80,000 people seem to have been there. And so because you already have literally one of the biggest shows on the planet, imagine if you just expand it. You can expand it. There's no reason that they don't.
So we get props for doing a show every day. We kind of treat this podcast kind of like the hobby radio station, and we love it. But I got to be honest, I got to give you guys a shout out. 24 hours a day, nonstop breaking, the logistics of all of that, and always having someone on. And I don't mean like physically there, right? Because when you break, you have to be emotionally there. Kudos to you guys, because that's not easy. Dan, I got to ask you, man. So cards and NFTs, to me, they seem to overlap. Did you feel like a undercurrent of NFT talk? Did you feel like NFTs are kind of, people that are collecting cards are starting to get interested and dabble in NFTs? Talk to us about your take macro on the whole NFT world.
Sure. So NBA Top Shot was the one distraction for sports card investors or sports card collectors because it felt the closest thing that they could understand, right? The hard part for NBA Top Shot and why it's had the huge dip and why I kept saying I don't invest into it is I'm focused on supply and demand. Every market I invest in, whether it's cryptocurrency and why I love Bitcoin so much is the limited supply. Why do I like the sports card market? I know there's 314 PSA 10 Jordans. I know there's around 2,200 LeBron PSA 10. Like, I know that the supply is small and I know the demand will continue to grow. And so, so for me, it's just, how do I say this? Think about the best way.
It's trying to be nice.
You got Cage, the Top Shot gazillionaire, up there in the top right corner, so he might help you out.
The supply of NBA Top Shot never had a chance.
It's true.
Because LeBron's going to have 46 more dunks this week, and he's going to have 84 more dunks next month, and 200 more dunks the next month after that. So who cares?
Not if Russell Westbrook steals all the balls from him and he does.
Do you see what Panini's doing?
So who cares if in 2020 on April 14th, Cage has a LeBron dunk?
You're right. Do you see
2022 and 2023, who's going to look back at that dunk? Unless it's like the holy shit, wow, he just, last second dunk. What about the fourth dunk in the first quarter that he bought for $18?
You're right.
How?
Right. And some of them had 40,000, and then the next week they had another one with 25,000. So you're right as far as the supply. You see the Panini version of it? They come out their NFT ones, and it's basically mirroring the hard card, and the base is limited to, I think it's $17.99. The silver is at a $149. Then they have like a blue at a $99, gold at a $10, and that's it. That's for the year. Like no moments, no dunks. You know what the finite pop is. People love silvers. Now you get a numbered silver out of $149. You think the same thing for that, or you think maybe Panini's kind of learning with what Andrew likes to call that second mover advantage?
Yeah, the first person to knock down the door is the first one to get shot, right? So it's interesting. Again, there's going to be so many different options because NFTs are a JPEG or digital art or like they're just, you just can make more. And so we watch certain people in the space, they can do a big drop. And then if it's not limited, by the way, the reason VFriends works is there's only 10,000 of them. I think it's 10,300. That's it. And so over the course of time, as Gary keeps getting more and more famous, the supply stays the same, but the demand grows. I like that. He's not doing another NFT tomorrow that's going to all of a sudden make that one useless, right? That's what has supply and demand to it. My concern for most of these is, whether it's NBA Top Shot or Panini, etc., if every week and every month and every 3 months and every 6 months there's another drop and another drop and another drop and another drop, the supply is just so large. And even with large demand, it's not enough to scoop it all up.
Yep.
And then when you start to think about the high price, a lot of these crazy crypto punks and some of these things that go for 5-6 figures each, well, those guys are never buying the $40 to $500 type stuff. They're not buying the $800 stuff. So there's different levels to these people. And so my main concern is lots more people are coming into NFTs, but not as fast as people are creating NFTs.
I'm curious. Let's say you were starting a coffee shop, coffee store. I mean, a card store. I grew up in the family business, so I still think coffee shop, card store. What advice would you have? People are opening stores all over the country now. You run a successful store. What advice would you have for people out there?
Yeah, so overhead is the main issue for people. You keep your overhead limited and focused, you can have a successful business no matter what happens in the market. There may be times where city gets shut down, you got to be not have any customers for 3 or 4 months. Making it friendly for people to be able to do consignment with you, because you don't have unlimited pockets. You can't just buy everything. It's not real. The only people that can buy everything is Burbank Sports Cards. They seem to be able to buy 40 million cards and growing. Outside of them, there's no other car store that I've been to, because I've gone to probably 45 stores to buy from them. Nobody else can afford to buy at scale like Burbank. And so someone that's opening up a car store, you need to have some capital to be able to buy and sell, buy, sell, and trade. You need to have a space that's for consignment. Efficiency is what people truly care about. So if you're a PSA drop-off location or you're somewhere that can do consignment, people want to have information. So they want to have good records of when they dropped it off. Cage brought me these cards. Here's the 6 cards. 2 of them are going to go to PSA. These 4 we're going to sell for him. Here's the price points. Here's the minimum he's willing to take, blah, 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 blah. And then giving him that data. Having a wide collection is important. Does not need to be super high priced. You want to have some grails in case you get the rich guy or girl that walks in and wants to buy a gift or wants to add to their collection. But for the most part, someone like that might come in and tell you what they want. You don't have to have it. You can go source it for them and still make money. You can be a broker. People come ask Daniel all the time for some $12,000 card. He can find it for $10,500. They're happy at 12, and everyone in the mix is happy, and he didn't have to actually have that card sitting in the case, and he didn't have to have that capital into the card. And so consignment's a big help for that. One tough part is allocation. You're not going to get a good allocation no matter who you are, no matter how much money you have, no matter how much access you think you have. Nobody, and I mean nobody, gets enough allocation from any of the major distributors. So you have to do what we do. We are constantly in the market at every event. We go to every other card store. We're buying from everyone. We try to make friends with everyone. And we want to be the resource to be able to buy from their allocations, because you will never get, and I mean this bluntly, you will never get enough allocation ever, for lots of reasons. Most of the other stores are grandfathered in, and they don't have it to give to you, and there's no reason to give it to you over someone that's had a store for 22 years.
So, by the way, throw that out there just to take a pause, because we've heard many times Panini's printing too much. Panini's printing out there. They make too much stuff. Here is a huge 24-hour-a-day breaker saying you can't get enough product. So talk about what the demand is out there, guys. That's amazing to think about.
It is our absolute hands-down number one issue is getting more product. We're selling $300,000 a week, and I'm driving up and down the streets. Mo, Daniel, we go to Frankensons, we go to Burbank, we go to our friends' stores, we go to people, like, we're calling every distributor and broker. Like, all we try to do all day long is buy more and more and more and more wax. We can't buy enough. Our numbers sound cool. If I actually had the product to back it up to go even more, we would do more. Not anything restricted due to demand. It's restricted due to how much product we can't get.
Lenhart, what's Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna add to that. It's more than a full-time job just to find the supply of wax. If there were 4 people all day sitting there just buying wax, that would help. But we have 4, 5, 6. We have the entire company on OfferUp and Craigslist and eBay, and all we do is buy, and we still can't buy enough.
You guys are on Craigslist looking for wax. That's how I know Craigslist started this all, by the way. This is all Craigslist started this all. Lenhart, I'm curious, what's you could do top 3 or top 5. Like, what are the most popular wax products people are ripping right now?
Select has gained a lot of steam, whether it's the new Select UFC that came out that we got a chance to rip at the National. I ripped right before I hopped on. I was ripping NFL Gold Standard that just came out. Before that, it was a 1-box break of Select basketball that just came out in 2021. So Select is kind of gaining some steam, along with them coming out with retail this past year. That was kind of big for just the Select brand in general. I think 2-3 years ago, people didn't realize how rare some of the Select variations were, the court sides and those things. So now people are kind of a little more educated and picking up on the value that is actually bringing when you actually open that box. A lot of people don't realize how often you're losing when you open a box. And so finding the products that have the big hits that are more common, like Select being one of them, that's been very popular. One other thing is we've had a lot of interest in soccer, Prism, UEFA, even the cheap stuff like Chronicle, Cellos, Chronicle hobby boxes of soccer, where you're able to get the prisms, you're able to get some of those cards from the higher sets at a relatively affordable price. So UFC, Select, Chronicles, and then everyone every once in a while will rip an old 2003 box or a 1996 Chrome box. So those are kind of the top three. The old school stuff, soccer's been popular, and then Select, all sports.
So, guys, you went into the National probably with a certain mindset about the hobby, what you were going to do. Did you come out of it with that same thought process about the hobby? Did you come out of it with a different version? Was it better than what you expected in some regards, worse? I mean, I got to tell you, I went into it thinking, all right, we have this build up to the National. It's been a couple weeks of activity because the National is there, and I was expecting sort of like maybe a letdown afterwards. People, but I got to tell you, I left the National, and I'm like, I'm reinvigorated. I really am. I thought maybe we're gonna have like a slow one of these. I think we might be looking at another quick head up, because I mean, it is amazing how many people are out there, and not just the show, the trade events are amazing. I mean, that is what you got, kids with these huge slabs just making trades, learning economics, doing the whole stuff. So I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was so impressive how many humans were there and how much excitement there was. And it's a long show, so it's 5 days. It's not a joke. Most conventions are 2 to 4 days. 5 days is a long time. So it was very impressive how busy it was. We also saw different types of crowds as we got to Saturday and Sunday. You saw people coming in as their, for the weekend. They were coming in as travelers and tourists. And so it was interesting. Wednesday is kind of like all dealers, industry, and you could see the way that people worked and talked. And Thursday was similar. And then Friday, you start to see a blending of industry plus the masses, like people coming in from all over the place that are just tourists or hobbyists. And then Saturday was heavy. Like, that was the busiest day by far, obviously. And that was really just people coming in for the weekend. The main thing I would like to go in knowing now is, one, I was trying to sell my kidney to buy more cards on day 2 because we were just Daniel's.
Well, that's good to hear, right? Because I'll tell you, and then you can comment on this. You ready? You want to have more. You want to have more cash. You want to be more nimble with money to buy the bargains that come up, right? So I walked out of the show maybe Friday, and I walked over towards the Whatnot ice cream, trying to get myself a Jordan PSA 9, but I just wound up with a bomb pop. Nice job, Whatnot. You could have snuck one for Cage. I could have got you some press here. I know I'm not 12, but come on now. But in any event, it was a good bomb pop. I could use that. I was losing my voice. So I left, and I'm like, you know what? You guys, Mealy Pops, Ryan, Card Collector, and maybe a few others were the ones I thought were well capitalized enough, because I walked around the show and I try to listen. I try to pay attention because I want to have a pulse on the hobby. And I saw a lot of people walking up to tables with boxes, with cases, saying, hey, you guys buying? Everyone had a sign that said buying, but most people turned people away. Most people were like, no, I'm not buying. Or well, it depends what you got. You got like these, and they listed like 3 really liquid kind of cards that they could flip. They could try to steal from someone. You guys, you were buying, like legit. I saw people come to the table. Yeah, come on, let's take a look. We'll buy. Mealy Pops, Jamil from down in Florida, he had a line. And, they were turning people away. Like, we don't really want these. But they had a line, and they said, we'll buy. We'll take a look at what you got. You name it. Card Collector, too, the same deal. So I love the show, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, are people too card rich and cash poor now? Like, should I be worried about this? And I walk up to the Whatnot thing, and right in front of it, before I get, my bomb pop, is Luber. You mentioned him before. I said, Josh, what do you think, man? I said, I'm a little nervous about this. I mean, people are walking around with cards and trying to sell them to the dealers, and dealers are like, pass. And he goes, I'm not worried about this at all. I said, what do you mean? He says, the average age of the person in there is 20 years less than it was 5 years ago. We're doing fine. And I mean, boom, just changed my entire outlook on the entire thing. What do you think of that?
So I think it's, card store owners, for the most part, are who have the boots there. And there's only so much you can buy. There's levels to what you're doing. Most stores only have one store. There's not really a chain out there. There's not someone that's just like Daddy Warbucks ready to buy everything like Burbank's sports cards can. And so it's tough for most. So listen, buying up 50K or 100K or 500K, there's levels to that, but that could be 1 or 2 or 3 cards, or that could be 1 or 2 or 3 collections. There's no amount of capital you could go there with that you can use, right? Because there's $1 million cards and 500K cards and 50K cards. So even if you went there with millions of dollars, you could still go broke on day one buying up cards. So the capital part is really up to the business owner and what they can afford to do, how much they're then selling while they're there, potentially using that cash to buy more, or if they're just going there to sell and, you know, recapitalize themselves for the rest of the year before the holidays come. It just depends on their mindset. You know, a lot of these, again, most store owners have been around for 20 plus years. And all the new stores that have popped up are really just the last 8 months, not even the full year because of COVID. So I think it's going to be interesting to see as it evolves if some big money guys come in and back some of these store owners, or some big VCs come in and back some of these guys. I think that could get really interesting if someone just had like the booth, like the buying booth, whether they were store or not. They were just like, hey, we're buying, we'll pay 70 cents on the dollar to everyone, come on over. I think they would have a line that was stay steady for 5 days straight.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they were bluntly paying 70 to 80 cents on the dollar. I think they would have a line from the beginning of the show to the end of the show all the way back. So, but they'd also need to have $1 gazillion because of how much, you know, the market's big. There's a lot of cards.
It's very true. So listen, the store is growing, right? Tell us where you're going with it, and you know, tell us, you know, you're looking for people. Give us a little about the store, and then Andrew, you can go back to the national.
Yep. So we have 2 store locations now. We have Hollywood, which is our first location. Our second location is in Salt Lake City. We're in front of Pioneer Park by the basketball arena. Our third location will be in San Diego. Trying to get that lease as we speak. Our fourth location will be in New Jersey, and then we'll work on our 5th, 6th, etc. For obvious cities like you're in areas of Florida, we'll end up in Dallas, Phoenix, Vegas, all the main obvious cities. And we're also looking at Philly as well. And so the hard thing is finding good people in those cities that you can trust, right? They have a store with $1 million plus in inventory. You got to trust especially the manager, to run the operation for you. So we're really looking for the right partners and people to be in these cities. These are not franchises. We're financing it. So we're not franchising the stores, but we are giving some equity to people that we think can help us run these operations in different markets. We are definitely hiring on the breaking side. Obviously, we are a 24/7 operation, 24/7, 365. So we're not even stopping on the holidays. We are just go, 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 go. Right now, we're only at 2 channels with the goal of going to 5. So we have the Coffee Breakers and the Poke Breakers. So the Poke Breakers are breaking all non-sports. But the Coffee Breakers ultimately will end up being football, baseball, basketball, and other sports all separate. So that if Cage likes football and Goldberg wants to watch basketball, we don't have to watch each other for 36 minutes while you're ripping open a boxer pack. And God forbid Daniel likes baseball, we got to sit here for an hour while he rips open so many hundreds of cards, right? And so ultimately we do want to expand the channels to 5 channels. And if we do that, 5 channels 24/7, you need a lot of humans. You need a lot of breakers. And we do all same-day shipping. So the hard part for most breakers is it's a 1-man or 2-man show. And the amount of inventory and coordination to make it so you don't have errors, it takes a lot. You need someone full-time focused on shipping. And so we have a full shipping department. We are literally focused on doing same-day shipping at all times because we know how it feels as collectors to want to wait. How we don't want to wait 13 days for our package to show up and the market might have changed, or the player got injured, or we want to get it graded, or we just, you know, we want it because we want it. It's a fun game, right? And so we are very aggressively focused on that. So we're looking for good people in Salt Lake City and Los Angeles for the breaking. And as we open San Diego and New Jersey the rest of the summer, we'll be looking for people in those cities as well.
I'm curious. So people come up to your booth, rate these companies or rate the slabs that people want. PSA, BGS, SGC, HGA, and any others. You know, what are your customers looking for? So
PSA is, I don't know if you can see on the camera, but it's all the way up here. Like, it's just not close. Like it's PSA, then it's BGS, and then it's everyone else. And so do people like the SGC? It looks cool. It looks like it's got a little suit and tie. Like SGC looks cool. But from a value perspective, it's not close. And then PGI, GMA, and these other, they have a very big uphill battle against them because you have to look at BGS. These guys have been around forever, and they know everyone in the game. And they have a good, strong brand. The difference is it's like Nike versus Reebok. Reebok's still a cool brand, but it's not Nike, right? It's not the brand that we all grew up on watching Michael Jordan, right? And so PSA is far and away the biggest and coolest brand in the space and has the highest value to back it up. But also, they now have a multi-billionaire behind it who's young, focused, has built and scaled and exited a company prior with Nat Turner. And he's not just the backer, now he's the CEO. And so as a betting man, I will bet on Nat Turner to go fix the operations of PSA. The main thing for all of us is not the brand, not the quality. Sometimes we might get frustrated if we get an 8 versus a 9 or a 9 versus a 10 that we thought we should have got. That happens with any market, any inefficiency in any market. That part won't change much. However, the main thing is what the whole world knows about is there are millions and millions and millions and millions of cars behind. That's attributed to the fact that how big and cool they are and how impressed we are with them and what type of value they provide. He will fix that, right? It's just math. How many good graders can he get that can grade X amount of hundreds of cards per day, times that by 50 guys, then 100 guys, then 200 guys, then 300 guys, or bring in some technology that can help streamline it a little bit, not the whole process, but a little bit of it. Remember, each part of a grading process, even if it only takes 30 seconds to a minute, times that by 4 million cards. You know how many 4 million minutes is? It's a lot. And so every little part of the process is a lot. And so it's just a math and time game. And I believe that someone like Nat, who's already exited a large company before, will figure it out.
I'm curious why no one opens up like a training center for graders.
I think that they would make a ton of money, just like the recruiting business itself, and like tech recruiting or recruiting business itself is one of the biggest markets in the world that nobody talks about. They get paid 10 to 20% of someone's salary. So if someone made a grading school, the same way they have poker dealer schools, right? Or in blackjack dealer schools, they make great money, and then they sell those people off to the casinos to go work as poker dealers or blackjack dealers. People have cyber coding their schools, and then they train them, and then they send them off to Facebook, Google, Amazon, etc., and keep 10 or 20% of their salaries. It makes perfect sense, especially in grading, because it's very, 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 very difficult to find someone that's passionate and knowledgeable about a certain sport. Usually it's not going to be all completely wide. Someone that knows soccer is not necessarily going to know 1962 baseball, right? To know what they're looking for. So you have to find someone that knows a sport and then train them on the intricacies. But then PSA, BGS, etc. would be in a bidding war to try to get any good grader.
100. And the grading companies hold all the leverage over the hobby right now. If you had the training facilities, you would hold leverage over the grading companies, and you would dominate. So I've said this to you, Cage, tons of times. To me, that's such a uncharted territory. Like Henry Ford, when he wanted to ramp up operations, colleges and universities, where did they even come from? They were the breeding ground to help us become engineers and doctors, lawyers. Anyway, I won't get on that rant. What do you think about the Lakers' moves in the offseason? Building a nursing home right there in the Staples Center. What do you guys think?
I think Daniel will know more, obviously, because he understands the game and the sport more. But from a marketing perspective, I think it's fascinating. Putting together an all-star team, whether it's the 2002 or 2004 Olympics or not, it's still they're an all-star team. And from a jerseys, marketing, selling out the arena and the stadium every single night, they were already top 3 best-selling arena on the planet. Now, who's not going to go? Those games are going to be packed, completely sold out. It's going to be watching. I don't know. The hard part for the NBA is how do you then, if you only have 3 or 4 super teams, what happens to the other teams, right? If you go in, Milwaukee has no chance to go back, right?
What?
Let's be clear. They got really, really lucky in this scenario for having so many injuries across all the major teams at the same time. I'm super happy for Giannis, but that's it for him.
I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is on this. I'm saying the Bucks go back to back.
You're saying the Bucks are going to go back to back. You're going to get a lot better odds from a casino than from me because the odds are not in their favor. But when you now have certain super teams that even if they have some players get injured, they still have a super team, I think it's going to be really difficult for them to.
But they all have betas on their team where Giannis is the only alpha left in the league.
I think he's nuts because the Hornets are clearly the class of the East. That's kind of where I'm going. Dan's clearly a Durant guy. I think he's he might be upset that Durant on his own, even without any of his super team left, almost took Giannis out. So imagine actually putting his teammates back in
But
there.
Fleyshman, you're from LA area, right? You're from SoCal originally.
Yep.
Lenhart, you too? Are you from SoCal? Where's home for you?
Yep, born and raised.
What do you think about the Lakers' moves? You excited to see Melo and Bron play together?
I am. I think
That's it. That's the truth. The truth is there.
it's so much deeper than just that. And what's crazy is I was a day late on half the trades, and I missed the whole draft too. I didn't even know what was going on. It was just a crazy week with everything going on. Being there, 12, 14 hours a day, trying to keep up on the trades, trying to keep up on this. But I will say I did make a couple big LaMelo plays back at the last Dallas show. Guy came up to my table, asked if I had any LaMelo, and I was like, who asked for that? He goes, something. I heard there's a rumor he might get traded. 5 minutes later, guy walks up with a stack, 12 to 15 LaMelo optic rated rookie PSA 9s. He was asking
Lonzo,
$15.
right? You mean the brother that can't play as well. LaMelo can play, but Lonzo's
the brother who can't play as well.
Came up with a stack for $15 each. That's how cheap Lonzo ball optic rated rookie 9s are. $15 to $25. So I thought that was a play. I thought that was good. So when I heard the trade, when I heard all this, I was excited. But with that said, I'm still not caught up on everything that's happened. I don't even know who the first 5 picks in the draft were.
We got to catch you up. Last question, okay? So you mentioned PSA. You'd bet on PSA. Obviously, I bet on Coffee Breakers, seeing your guys' operation, getting to meet you guys at the show. I'm a believer. But you mentioned, Starstock, Alt, Whatnot, all these companies, maybe it's a person. Maybe it's someone you met at the show. I know you didn't get a chance to walk around, but maybe they came to your table. Who left an impression? Who would you, if you could buy into their card, so to speak, who would you be buying into?
Golden Auction is going far and away to become the biggest. They're just the most creative, the most marketing partnerships, the most deal flow, the most access. There's lots of other auction houses, but watching what Ken is doing is far and away the most innovative, and he takes action nonstop, and he's always in the mix, and he loves it more than anybody. So I think watching what Golden's going to do is fascinating. I liked hearing from Eric at Loop, having a good one-to-one, listening to him about what his plans are, how he sees the game, what's different between them and Whatnot, and how they're doing more of like in-store. Had a couple of his clients have already done over $1 million in sales. I like what he's doing there. Obviously, Grant from Whatnot, I've been watching since the beginning. For them to go out and raise $70 million is so wild.
And put it all in customer acquisition too, huh?
They are going to be helping the entire market.
Bomb pops are expensive.
Yes, they are. But yeah, just watching some of the guys, I think that Topps is by far the most innovative. I think it's interesting to watch what Project is doing. I think it's a way for people to get in and buying $20 cards. I love that at scale, and the artists that they're getting are fascinating, and I'm trying to help introduce them to more artists that might fit for them that have large followings. So I like what they're doing. But yeah, I think that watching the certain tech companies, watching what they're doing is most interesting. And then obviously some of the on the distribution side, Blowout Cards and David Adams, like GTS, like some of these characters, they have a great runway ahead of them. So as an investor, I'd like to buy a piece of them, right? Because they're just going to keep growing as there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of new breakers and dozens and dozens of stores popping up. What do they got to do? They got to buy product. Where are they going to buy it? Blowout, David Adams, GTS, and a handful of others. That's it. And so if I put my investor hat back on, when you only have people to buy from, you're not going to get an allocation for Panini, Topps, etc. What are you going to do? You're going to go to these distributors. So I didn't have any one character that was like, oh my God, I have to go all in on this person. But just watching what the Star Stocks and Loops and Whatnots are doing, it's exciting on the tech side, but also just the meat and potatoes of what the distributors and what Golden Auction is doing is going to be great to see.
Any final words, Cage? I think this was fun.
That's a great place to end it. I mean, listen, we've talked about the artists and the culture We talk about the breakers, and I'm sure very soon, Dan, you're right, they'll have their own breakers pavilion without the noise, without the distractions, sort of like an autograph pavilion, breakers pavilion. I was shocked at how many breakers were there, and I think it's going to only grow. I think that's a segment of the hobby that's only getting bigger. It's what I will tell you, and maybe tell me if I'm wrong, but the breaking side of it, if you could figure out a way where you guys are there as well, that was where the excitement was coming from. You walk a casino, and I don't want to say we're all gamblers, but we're all gamblers. You walk a casino, you want to head over to that roulette table where everybody's screaming, someone's on a heater, it's that type of excitement was only coming from the breakers pavilion. People were hitting things, it was excitement, it's fun stuff. So, you combine that culture, the breaking, sort of what you guys are doing. I mean, I think that's what leads us forward in the hobby. So, guys, they're looking for people. They're looking for people in a whole bunch of locations. So he's like, come on, bring it on. That's good stuff.
Where should they reach out? You should DM me on Coffee Breakers on Instagram. Where's the best place?
They can DM us, or they can email info@thecoffeebreakers.com.
Beautiful.
Love it.
Thank you, guys.
Dan and Daniel, Lenhart, Fleyshman. Glad I got to meet both of you. Fleyshman, I'm glad we had you on the show, man. You're a wealth of knowledge. You're a businessman through and through. Thank you, guys. This was a blast.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.